button. So I'm super excited to welcome my friend Steffani Adaska, who is a senior living recruiter that I have known since I think I've been in this business for 32 years. And Stephanie and I were having a discussion the other day, and she was like, "Well, Steve, that's e-branding," and I was like, "What's e-branding?" And it's like it's employment branding. And I did a quick Google search. I was like, "How have I not heard this?" And I immediately said, "We got to do a discussion on this because if I haven't heard of this, and this makes a lot of sense from recruiting, marketing, outreach, you name it." We got to have a discussion around this. But Steffani, I know you got a lot of content for us today. Before we jump into that, tell us a little bit about your background and what what got you into this role that you're in right now.
Well, thanks for having me, Steve. And I'm looking forward to sharing employment branding with all of you because I'm really, really passionate about it. I started recruiting in senior living in 1995. So 27, going 20, 27, 28 years. I've been a recruiter in the industry, and I've done many different things with my recruiting background, in addition to currently running Silver Age Recruiting, which is a third-party recruiting firm. I also have a company called Senior Housing Jobs, which is a niche job board for the senior living marketplace. So my background really is all about employment in the senior living industry. And this topic is something, like I said, I'm very passionate about. I'm excited to share my knowledge and look forward to answering
All right.
as we go along.
So let's dive into this. I'm running your slides for you. So before I duck behind the curtain and you get going, a few things for those of you in the audience. We want this to be interactive. So if Steffani says anything and it brings up a question or a comment, or you've got an experience that might be similar to that, throw it into Q&A or throw it into chat. Steffani, when you pause, I'll jump in if I see something that pops up, but you can take a few breaks if you like and check in with me, and we can kind of have that dialogue. And then when I start sharing the slides here, when you want me to advance them, you just say next. And let's see, let me duck off the stage and take it. We've already know that that's the topic, and there you are. So take it away.
All right. So here's basically just what we're going to cover over the next 40 minutes or so. As he mentioned, any questions that you have, you can chat them to him and he'll forward them to me, and I'll do my best to answer any questions that you have. Also, if you, like you mentioned, if you have any experience in doing this, or your company or your organization is doing something unique and different, we would love to hear that, because I don't know everything as much as I'd like to. So we're going to cover about basically what is an employer brand, why is it so important, and also the anatomy of your e-brand, also known as employer brand. And how it's done, who in your company and your organization is responsible for this, and also how to get started. So, in case you've missed it, employer branding is such a huge, increasingly important process in talent acquisition and recruitment over the past 10 years. It's estimated that there's going to be over $600 billion spent this year alone in 2022 on employment branding, not necessarily in senior living, but just in employment branding alone. So what does that mean for your senior living organization? Basically, if you want to stay ahead of the curve, it's really time to start thinking about your employment brand and how you can promote your employment brand and have a strong employment branding strategy. Next. So in senior living, it's not only important to promote your community as a place where the residents want to live. I mean, obviously that's what your marketing team does. They help promote the brand. That's what marketing is about. But you also need to think about creating and fostering an environment where you can attract top talent for your organization, who's going to take care of those residents that you're looking to attract to your community. So next. I'm going to be showing a bunch of statistics as we go along. So, please don't hesitate to take a look at them and jot them down if they're important to you. But 75% of job seekers will not take a job with a company if they have a bad reputation. Even if they're unemployed, even if the pay is amazing, they're not going to want to work for you. So what is employer branding? Employer branding is a process. It's the process that creates an image, the image of your organization, your company, and this conveys your organization as an employer. So basically, your company, your employment brand is how your company is viewed in the marketplace as a place to work. Next. Marketing 101, branding equals your image. And same thing in employment branding. It's the same thing. It just has an image of it's the image of your employment and as an employer in the industry. The image is perceived as a place, your place to work, and your perception is both external and internal. And what that means is it's external to those that maybe have never heard of you before. They're going to your website for the first time, but it's also internal. Your employees, your current members that work for your organization, they are part of your employer brand. The employees that you have, but also basically it's just focusing on how your organization relates being a great place to work, and we hope that your employment brand dictates a great place to work. So so why is this important? Why is your employment brand important? Well, if you look at the statistics, to the written in the blue percentages, 60% of job seekers want to learn about your culture and your values before they even consider joining your organization. You can read the rest of those there, but it's really important that you focus on your employment brand and what is being said about your organization. Some of the things you have control of, some of the things you don't have control of, and we'll discuss that in a little bit. Next. So 91% of job seekers will use some kind of research, usually Google. They'll start at Google or on your website if they know that directly. And they want to learn about you before they even contemplate applying for a job. 69% of candidates are more likely to apply to a company if there is a strong actively managed employment brand. And we'll get to what that looks like in a moment. So why is it important? As I mentioned, 90+% of people are doing some research on you before they get to think about joining your organization as an employer. So your identity, your reputation is super important. Next. They want to know why they should come work for your organization. They want to know what's in it for them. Why should they work for your facility or your organization versus the next one down the street? Why? Well, basically, like I just said, why do they want to come work for you? I stole this emblem on the right, the Fortune, best. Everybody, talks about the best place to work, the best of organizations. They actually have Fortune magazine, and the Fortune organization has specific, best of workplaces specifically for the aging services. You can find that online. There's a list of 25 of them. What Fortune has, as I noticed during this, when I was doing my research for this, you'll notice that they're primarily larger organizations, but there's a lot of small groups that are also doing some impressive things, and we will get to those as well. So another thing that's important, why it's important to have a strong employment brand is it allows you to dictate or share to the folks out there what your unique employer value proposition is. Your EVP is what that is. And we'll talk about that probably at another one, because that's a whole topic on its own. So essentially your employment brand is what people are telling their friends about. It's really imperative that you get this right, because they can talk about things, kind of like Yelp. People tend to say really good things on Yelp about, let's say a restaurant or a store or an experience that they have, but it's also a place where people can vent and it can get ugly. So it's really important to focus and spend time on promoting a positive employment brand, because the word is going to get out. So how it can help you, how it can help your organization. Next, you basically have the opportunity to create, an asset, or create, position yourself as an attractive place to work and a place that everybody wants to go to. Unfortunately, on the flip side, it can also, like I said, it can be, a negative, negative reviews. It can also kind of be an attraction killer. So the benefits of a strong employment brand, it can help boost your employee retention. People who work for you, are going to want to stay with your organization because they're happy, and a happy employee is a good thing. It also helps reduce, costs of recruiting. It's really important to, save money. It takes money to make money. You've heard that saying before. If you put a little time and effort in promoting your employment brand properly and executing it, it'll come back to you by the savings of, because you have reduced retention, or it boosts higher retention, excuse me, it's going to reduce your recruitment costs going forward. So, job seekers, Glassdoor, company reviews. We've all been on Glassdoor at one point or another, and we've all looked at, companies, whether you're considering joining them or not. If they have bad reviews, people are not going to want to work for your organization. So it's really important to focus on this. And there's some organizations in addition to Glassdoor. There's a place or organization called Comparably. It's a company that actually helps create a very valid and true evaluation of your organization. And these reviews come from employees. So if you're interested, the name of the company is Comparably. I think I said Calendly, but I meant to say Comparably. But we'll get to that at another point.
Hey, Steffani, I wanted
Yes.
to jump in and just go back to this slide right here, because I think this is what got me so excited about this topic. When you brought it up to me, is that because elder care and senior living and our discussions, whether they be aging in place and home care, and what community did your mom go to, or it's the part of every barbecue now. Like, I mean, everywhere you go, it's the conversation. So if Jane just started working at a senior living community and she's talking about her job, and they've got a well-defined employment brand, all the people standing around Jane when she's talking about her job, it's, hey, this is a great place to work. It's a place where maybe my kid could work part-time over the summer when they're home from college. But more importantly, wow, that sounds like a good place where my mom might be happy. Mm-hmm. And that's what gets me charged up, is the intersection of the employment brand with the consumer brand. And so when you talk about people talking about their job with their friends, I just really think that's one of the super exciting things about this topic and defining it better.
Absolutely. And thank you for stating that. It's really imperative that we get this right, because it really can help boost your company significantly as not only a place for the residents to stay, but also as a place where employees want to join your organization versus somebody else. So the anatomy of your e-brand or your employment brand is basically, there's a tactical way to execute an authentic employer branding strategy. And so we're going to look at the anatomy of your employment brand. We have 4 or 5, 10 different topics right here. Your website, your career page, job listings, your mission, culture, values, candidate experience, your company reviews, your employee stories and advocacy. Like we were discussing, that's kind of, having your employees part of this process and saying this is a great place to work because is really, really going to help boost your employment brand. Your activity on social media is going to get the word out, branding, marketing, and your public perception of the outside people looking in, the external, and then your awards and distinctions. And as it says on the little, chart on the right, the color coding really discusses there's things that you can control, basically have 100% control of. There's things that you can influence directly, and then some are indirectly. So, the things that you control, that's kind of something that we're going to focus on. But it looks like there's a lot of things on that anatomy, and there's 10 items there. But don't fret. It's you've heard the statement of the best way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time. So step back from where you're at, absorb some of the things that we're going to talk about today, and then you can implement one thing at a time. And two of the most important things, in my opinion, and this may already be covered properly with your organization, but when I'm doing my research and looking for organizations that need my help to help them with their employment brand, I look at their website. And so let's first look next. The website is, obviously the first thing that people go to when they're looking for a facility to live or a place to work. I'm not going to tell you how to build a website because I'm not a technological person, but it's really important that you get that right, and how you do that is really important. So, if you don't have a career center attached to your website, that's probably the number one thing you want to prioritize, because that's really important. If you don't have it in the first fold, or it's called above the fold, and we'll get to that in a moment, you need to make sure that you talk to the folks in your tech department and put that at the forefront of your first priority to promoting your employment brand. So what an above the fold looks like, or it's also known as the first fold, is basically it's the way that somebody perceives your website when they're looking at their laptop or whether they're looking at your phone. It's what they see at the top. And if you don't have a career center and you don't have a message to come join our team, or, career center here, that's something you really want to prioritize. Next. There's an organization, the Springs Living. They're based out of Oregon and Montana. They are a for-profit group that is super impressive, in my opinion, and doing things right when it comes to their employer brand. And one of the things, I want to show you folks a couple examples of why they're doing a great job. Is if you look at, this is their homepage, and the top on the first fold or above the fold, they have a careers button. It actually stands out above and beyond most of the other buttons that are on there in their navigation system. You don't necessarily have to make it the top thing like they did. I personally think it's a great idea. But what's going to happen is when you go to the next slide, you're going to see where that takes you. And it takes you to their team's career. They have the separate website specifically that talks about the careers. And it's basically a website within a website. And if you look at it, if the actual email address, or the domain address is, Teams, it's Teams springsliving.com, and it offers the different things that they're focusing on offering their potential candidates and job seekers, so they have an idea of what their company is all about.
Steffani, I think it's left the culture of our business, but at one point it used to be, well, I don't want my consumers to know that we need to hire people. I want them to think that, we've got everybody locked in. And I think now that sort of attitude is, it's in the news. There's hiring issues everywhere. And so every website, every industry is putting their career page front and center. And actually you can see where a well thought out career page is something that's attractive to the end consumer, because you can talk about the culture in your organization. And that's probably one of the most important things when I'm thinking about, hiring a home care agency for my mom, or mom's going to move to a specific community.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And having a strong career center, you were right, Steve, when you said that, before, organizations didn't want people to know that you're hiring because they sense that there might be a problem with the organization. But nowadays it's first and foremost to help attract that, because it makes your company as a whole a better place to be, a better place for the residents, a better place, obviously, for the staff. And it's so paramount to do so. So some things you don't want to do is you don't want to hide your career center below the fold. And below the fold is basically the flip-flop and the opposite of above the fold. It's on the scrolling on to the bottom of the page where a lot of people will go to find the contact information or find out who the parent company of the organization might be or that particular facility. So having it not only in the above fold, but also having it below the fold as well on the bottom. Hiding your career center, as I mentioned, in a drop down is a total no-no. Like the Springs, it's top right and center. You see it on the top fold. If you have it like in a maybe about us section or contact us, and it's under a different navigation and it's not even visible from the blind eye or for the naked eye at the beginning, you're going to lose a lot of people. People are ADD. You have 3 to 5 seconds to have them find what they're looking for. Otherwise, they're going to go somewhere else, and it's really going to waste your time by not having that information front and center. My suggestion is having it as your own header in the navigation bar, and definitely having it also on the bottom navigation. So things to enhance your career center. Everybody needs to have a career center in their organization. It's really, really imperative. Talent acquisition is more about more than just posting a job online and posting and praying is something that's often been said. But having your recruiter search Indeed for resumes, that's a great place to start looking for candidates. But you really want to ensure that your company career site is a place where you can pull in people and entice them to apply for your jobs.
I'm curious at your thoughts on this, and I can see both sides of the coin. I mean, there are a lot of providers that have their company career site and they have their careers posted native on their site, meaning I'm at the Springs and I click on the job application and I'm on the Springs site. A lot of the providers, because it's labor intensive putting these jobs into 20 different sites, have chosen a strategy of where, okay, we're going to put all of our jobs on Indeed, or a platform, one of those platforms. And so now, instead of me going to your site to apply to this job, I'm over on an aggregate site. And what I've seen in some situations, even though there is a little bit of branding that's done on these sites, is that it's a detachment from the brand when you're over on a large site like Indeed. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, actually, because I had to break down the topics and I couldn't include anything, I was going to actually include pretty much what you're talking about is, when you post a job on your company website and you don't spider it out, so to speak, to other organizations and other websites that are going to, basically cast your net on a wider pond, you're making a mistake. It's really important to, advertise not only on your company website, but, LinkedIn. There's, specific job boards that are, industry specific. For instance, seniorhousingjobs.com is one. Obviously, that's mine. But also, Leading Age is, the organization for nonprofit or senior living and aging services. That's a great place to promote, your jobs. And while you're on the Leading Age job board or the career center, you can actually, in addition to posting your job, you can put your company logo on there. There's a page where you fill out pretty much when you're registering. Don't ignore the opportunity to put your logo on there and your company website and what the year it was founded and whether it's a for-profit or not profit and how many communities you have or anything that you want people to know about your organization. You can put that in there, and that's going to help strengthen the brand that people see.
Yeah, I think what I was alluding to, and I've seen this in a few situations. I don't know if anybody in the audience is sort of dealing with this in their organization, is where the jobs are on leading age, but they're not actually on the community's website. Like it's sort of, and I think that the job seeker is out there doing research in that they might see a job on leading age and they're going to go research your company and they're going to click on your career center. And if that job's not there, you know, there's okay, why? And I think that that builds into the employment brand.
Mhm. Absolutely.
But it's labor intensive. I mean, because you literally have a job, you post it on your website. Now you got to go and enter that into your other the other sites to get the word out.
Right. But there are solutions to that. I know for a fact that, and I shouldn't say that the national leading age, leadingage.org, but maybe their Virginia leading age. If you're a member of Leading Age Virginia, you can post a job for free. As part of your membership, you can post as many jobs as you want. You can take a feed from your corporate career center or your career center, whether you own one community or 600, there's spiders, there's systems, there's technology that will, extract the job postings that you have on your job board and put them on other job boards.
Yeah, scrape them.
So,
yeah, I'm sort of reiterating, you want to make sure that your career center is on your site is the most up to date, and in alignment with what else is out there. I've seen some gaps there. So, anyways, let me shut up and.
No, that's a fantastic point. So, job seekers, I'm talking about, what your career center needs to look like is, job seekers are really focused on your mission and your values. And, these are some things that you want to have on your career center page. So part of that, have your mission, your vision, where the company's going, what are the core values? These things are part of a really good employment brand, whether you have it on the homepage of your career center, or as if it's a drop down in your navigation so people can take a look at that. Just having that there is going to really help them get a better feel for what you're about, and if they're interested in your organization because they believe and they like your mission and they like your values. It's really something that should definitely not be overlooked. Next. On your website, I say show, don't just tell. And so differentiating yourself as an organization as a great place to work is imperative. Showing them your perks, talking about what great benefits you have, how you're supporting, how you embrace diversity, and not just telling them, but actually showing how you're doing it is going to be really key and important factor of differentiating you from somebody else. Thank you. Nope, that's fine. Goodwin Living is a company that they're a nonprofit organization based in Virginia, and I'm telling you, this company, I have a huge admiration for them. Not only do I respect and love the people that work there, but I also love what their values, their mission, and what they're doing to differentiate themselves from other organizations. Like I said, talent acquisition is more than just posting a job and hoping that somebody applies for it. It's being proactive and really doing some unique and special things within their organization to show why I should apply for a job within this organization. Next. So here's their homepage. This is the homepage, and this is the top. This is the first fold. This is right. I took a screenshot of what showed up on my laptop, and right-hand side is on the navigation bar is their careers. So having that right there, as I mentioned, is really important. When you drop down, it talks about it shows you gives you different options of what you can do to research. It talks about their benefits. It talks about, advancement opportunities within an organization, which is a very important thing. One of the top 3 things as a recruiter I ask when I'm interviewing candidates, what are the top most important things that you're looking for in an organization? And absolutely 100% of the time is, opportunity for advancement and growth. And this company really speaks loudly about having specific career paths for each of their positions within their organization. So the next one, this page is what they've done great is it talks about their mission. It talks about their growth opportunities. It talks about the benefits that they offer. But in addition to that, we have a video. It's an employee video. It's an actual employee. She's worked there for 50 years, which in itself right there is a great way to promote your brand by having that stability and longevity with an organization. But it shows that, it's actually a live person. Well, alive in terms of, you press the video and it's a live video. So it actually shows them and not just tells them by writing, some information.
And I wanted to jump in here just to state the point of the intersection between an employment brand and a consumer brand is that imagine you are a consumer and you click on this page. How much confidence you have in this organization. And one of the listening to an employee talk about how much they love their job and how committed they are to it. This is an amazing way to give a consumer confidence in the decision that they're making, as well as a candidate or an employee that might be interested in working there. And so this page in general, to me, really speaks to the intersection of branding. And I agree. They've done a great job.
Yeah, I mean, it really screams, I want to work for this company. And I appreciate, Steve, that you interjected and really are focusing not just on, I got the employer recruiter brain on, but looking at it from a resident's perspective, or potential resident, or a daughter or son of somebody who wants to put somebody, their mom in a retirement community. Absolutely, is this going to help make that decision versus your community or your organization versus another one that doesn't have a strong
and actually, like, because I speak to so many consumers and so many providers, one of the things that is always an issue is the cost of our communities, the services that we're providing. Something like this speaks to the cost because it's clearly showing that we're investing in the people that are taking care of your mom and dad. That's where our costs are. And so again, it's one of these things that you can point to. Let's say that you're having a dialogue at your community and somebody brings up the cost, and it's sort of like, hey, let me click over to our career center and show you where the majority of our overhead is going. It's going to our team, and here's what we do, X, Y, and Z. And establishing your competitive benefit over working at your community versus another, or your home care agency over another, is actually creating the reason why the consumer should be paying you in the end.
Absolutely. Good. And that's a great point. And, where Goodwin Living has really, in my opinion, done such a phenomenal job, and I give huge kudos to, what they've been doing and what they've been doing for years, is, they have a very holistic philosophy. They have a very, team members first. That's their approach. Team members first. I was watching a webinar. I'm not sure, Steve, if it was through, I believe it was with you. Correct me if I'm wrong, where the president and CEO of Goodwin Living was talking about, paying livable wages for their staff. So for instance, a CNA at their organization, they're not making, $11, $12 an hour. They pay them $20 an hour. That is huge attraction. And not that money is the only number one factor of people taking a job, because it's not. However, it allows the CNA to not have to work 2 or 3 jobs to make a living, to pay the rent, to put food on the table. They're giving them livable wages, and doing this because they know that if they pay them well, they don't have to have the 2 or 3 jobs. They're going to get the best of the best out of that employee, from, their energy perspective, where they can give that back to the residents. And, it trickles back to the residents and how they're being treated, instead of being exhausted and having like, oh, this is just a job. I make $12 an hour. And then I got to go to my, my other job to wait tables to pay the rent. And so they pay their team members first and foremost. They pay them as best as they possibly can. Now, money is tight. It's hard to find money and things, but one of the things that they had done specifically is they brought their, some of their health services that they were, do outsourcing, they brought it in-house. That saved the organization money, so they could use that to spend to give the livable wages to the CNAs and the LPNs and the folks that are, in the frontline staff. And they got really creative in doing so, and I give them huge kudos for that.
Yeah, and it was an article that was written, I know, because it was a wonderful article written about that initiative, and I'm going to try to find that and drop it into the chat.
Perfect. So if you could go back one slide, this is just one more page from the Goodwin Living website that was really focused about, showing what they actually do, and not, obviously it's on print, so you can't see it visually, but they're supporting their team members by, they have emergency grant fund for those, and the money's raised through their foundation. They are a nonprofit, and not every organization has that. But, let's say there's a family member that there's been a tragedy in their family and they need financial assistance. They can apply for a grant, and they can receive money that they don't have to pay back. It's a grant. It's free money as long as they're approved, to help them get through that. So they don't have to, quit their job or, start going through, into bankruptcy because they have some financial difficulties based on, something that has affected them in their life. They also are offering, fitness centers and pool access for their team members. That's fantastic. Not a lot of organizations do that, but all this information that they're sharing with it just helps deliver, a really, in my opinion, an exceptional candidate experience. And that's one of the things that's really important to your employer brand as well, is, having a strong candidate experience. Next. This is just an example of, I talked about having your career link on the bottom fold of your website. This is, if you scroll down to their homepage, and every page on their site, it has, links to different things. They always have your career center link on the top and always have it on the bottom. So, next, we have, back to the anatomy of an employer brand. Things you can control, things you can't control. Your branding strategy really consists of 3 things that are imperative, that you cover. And one is the story that you tell people. The story of your organization, for instance, going back to Goodwin Living, is where they have that video of that woman who has worked for the organization for 50 years. That's an amazing story to tell. You can't pay somebody to say that. You could, but it's not truthful. This is something that this organization lives and breathes. And the benefit to attract candidates is just beyond compare by just saying it written there that we take care of our employees, or we have, great tenure, but actually having that live story to tell, because people live through stories and they share through stories, and that's what they're going to share with their friends when they're talking about your organization as a good place to work. It talks about the culture of your company, the culture being very strongly tied to the mission and the values of your organization is really important, and getting the word out via social media is super important. And again, that is something that you absolutely can directly control, is what you share. So for instance, and I'm making the assumption, and I haven't been on Goodwin Living, and I'm not sorry for keep bringing them up, but I'm quite certain that they have that video on their website, on their social media, on their YouTube channel, and all the social media aspects out there. So it helps just permeate that presence and that storytelling within their entire brand. And brand consistency is something that not a lot of organizations are good at. And it is certainly something that they're very good at, as well as the Springs Living organization too. I mean, it's always consistent. So next. 99% of job seekers. Oh, I'm sorry, I missed a slide. That was, I went ahead of myself. This is focused really on what the job seeker from this is, sometimes when we're working and we're recruiting people, we're just focusing on being, in HR or talent acquisition. If you step back and look at things from the candidate's perspective, from the job seeker's perspective, and think from, being in their shoes, what they're looking for, and this is something I know as a recruiter, because I always ask people, what's important to them. They want to know the company's mission, values. What are some of the challenges the organization has? What's the culture like? I mentioned that in the previous slide, but reiterating that that's something really important that needs to be on your career center and promoted throughout consistently through your employment brand. Company reviews. Job seekers are going to be looking at Glassdoor, they're going to be going to LinkedIn, they're going to be going to some other organizations and ways to find out, is this a company that I want to work for? And if they have bad reviews, obviously they're going to want to bypass you. So being able to, directly influence some of those things is really important and paramount to promoting your employment brand. We already talked about, the stories that you tell, but that's just, reiterating that that's how important it is. Companies or job seekers want to know, is your organization transparent? Are they truthful? Are they walking the walk, talking the talk? And that's going to be super important. And having those stories out there and having the positive feedback from other employees is really going to help them be convinced that this is an organization that I do want to work for versus going to the other one down the street. Next. So how's this done? How do we get our organization to create a strong employment brand? It's a process. It's not easy. And who at your company is going to be responsible for it? So let's start off with, how it's done. Next. Next. So it's done with great intent. There has to be a lot of thought gone into it. There has to be a lot of great minds involved. It's not just something that you can do as a single person in your HR department or your talent acquisition department. You need to have the minds of others that can help support you and look at things from a different perspective. So, remember I said earlier about, how to eat an elephant. This is something that, you eat it one bite at a time, but in this case, you actually have multiple people that can help support you. So working with, the folks in your organization that are going to help you, they're going to help you execute this with extreme precision. And they're going to help you design a really strong strategy to help you go about doing so. So it's about hiring the right people. It's not easy to do so. You need the right players on board. It's not something that you can do alone. And so you need to focus on expanding your, I'm sorry, I'm having a little brain burp there, but you really need to focus on bringing others in your team to help you execute this. I believe I had mentioned earlier with the Springs Living that when they went to a whole change of their employment branding strategy, they took their talent acquisition and recruiting team, took them out of the HR department, and those folks actually report directly to the marketing department. They work hand in hand, cohesively, day in and day out with the marketing team, because that's how important.
Yeah. When you told me that, I was just, what a brilliant strategy. To not only does it align the consumer and the employment marketing, but it also combines budgets, because there are some strategic places where you could advertise for employees, but you're also advertising for your consumers, families, or influencers. And let's see, it looks like Amy has her hand raised. Amy, if that's by mistake, No worries but if it's not a mistake, you can open up your mic and um, ask a question. But
Okay.
let's see. Okay.
Next slide. And certainly, Amy, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to
Yeah,
be shy.
just unmute yourself and you can ask a question. All righty.
Next slide.
Okay.
76% of hiring managers admit attracting the right job candidates is their biggest challenge. I think we all know that getting great people is really hard. When you change your employment brand and you go from, from not having an employment brand to really learning how to execute and strategically bring out this beautiful benefit to your company, you're going to just automatically reduce the stress of having to work so hard to find the right candidates, because they're going to find you. And that is really, really a key thing in promoting your employment branding is really having them find you for the right reasons. So who's responsible for this? In my opinion, obviously this is a huge undertaking. Everybody's responsible. Everybody and anyone who cares about your residents and who wants to attract the best talent for your organization. They really go hand in hand. It's not about just your residents. It's not just about, the talent that you're attracting. They really kind of, the branding, the image, it's really about marketing. It's not about human resources. It's about branding and creating that identity for your organization that both the residents and your job seekers want to go to. It takes a village. It takes more than just one group or one department within your organization. Who's responsible for it? Obviously, HR. HR, and when I mean HR, I also mean recruitment and talent acquisition team. But it also, your marketing department. As I mentioned, the Springs Living organization, the way that they've done things, totally flip-flop things, and I think it's really was one of the most impressive things that I've seen in a long time. If you have extreme support from your marketing team and can work cohesively with them, I think you're really moving in the right direction. Next, operations. Whoop, go back one, please. The cog on the bottom left-hand side, that signifies the operations team. You're going to need some help with your operations team because they're going to have to be on board with this as well. And then, of course, support from the finance department, because not all this stuff is free. There are plenty of things that you can do that are free to help promote your employment brand, but it is going to take some change. It might be, as simple as changing things in your website, as we discussed earlier, that may affect the bottom line of your HR department. So you do need to have multiple departments in the organization on board with this and really committed to making the change. Next. So how to get started, going back to the anatomy of your employer brand is a great way to start. Thinking individually about your website, about your career site, about what is being said on those things, using social media, having blogs, that's a great way to get started. Next. But I have a checklist that I have here that'll help you focus on, at least giving you a step back so you can evaluate what you're currently doing to promote your employment brand. It'll allow you to start, analyzing where you are, take a temperature, get a feel for where you need help, and use that as a launching pad, for going forward. And you can change the next slide. Next. Here's a sample. This is just a basic, this is a very basic overview of things that you can start to look at. It's a short checklist, but it's a great place to get you started. If you want a more deeper look, if you're doing really well, if you think that you can check all the boxes here, that you have strength in all these opportunities or all these items on the list, kudos to you. You're doing a great job and you should be proud of yourself. But for those of the majority of organizations, they want to have a strong employer brand, but they haven't even begun to start, implementing any of these things. So this is a great place to start. If you're interested in, your employer brand and going through that checklist, I do have a more thorough employer branding list of over 100 areas in which you can, focus on fine tuning the things that you need to do better. And once you start implementing these things, again, one bite at a time, eating that elephant, you'll be surprised at how quickly, as long as you're committed to it and do a little bit every day or every week, and have the support from the others within the organization, you're going to have a great employer brand. And now you can go out there and flaunt it. And that the results, the benefits that you're going to get from really focusing and dedicating your team and your time, and again, resources from, the financial perspective, you're going to have a great employer brand, and that's going to attract the candidates and job seekers that you've been looking for. You'll find that they almost come to you versus you have to go look for them. When Rob from Goodwin Living, I keep going back to them because they're such an impressive organization, they get 700 applications of job seekers every month. 700. People would die. Many companies would die to get that. They're not a huge organization. They have, a couple buildings, and they, have 1,200 residents, I think, give or take. But 700 applications every month is really an impressive number for an organization that's not, a multi, monstrous, organization that has, 300 communities and 12,000 employees. It's quite impressive, and they hire about 5% of those 700. So it's a great way to dedicate your time, dedicate your services, focus on the things that are important, and you can go out there and flaunt your brand, and it'll certainly pay itself back tenfold. If you need help in hiring, if you need, some creative ideas on how to improve your employment brand strategy. As I mentioned, I have a checklist, the Senior Housing Jobs Smart Recruiting Checklist. It's over, it's free. I can email it to you. Just email me and I'll send it to you. But it's full of so many ideas, large and small, free and costly, that'll help you really, fine tune your branding and give you some great ideas to help you attract those candidates that are really hard to come by. And it's so imperative that you focus on doing this for your organization, not only to save money, but also to make happier residents. And happy residents tell their friends and their family members. I'm at the age where my mom's in a retirement community, and I'm very pleased with where my mom is because they take great care of her. And I tell my friends, and I know they tell their friends, and we're all, Steve's shaking his head, we're all at that age where it's really important that we do it right, because word gets out there. And if it's, you want either a good brand or a bad brand, that's your choice, and you can dictate, you're in control of that. And obviously it's going to benefit you by really focusing on these things.
This is great. A few sort of thoughts on this, that touching on some of the elements that you talked about, and I dropped that Politico article that was on Goodwin House and some other communities, and the hiring crisis that occurs for many of these jobs. Is the other thing is, birds of a feather flock together. Is that the profile of your high performing team in all the departments? You want to get more people just like them. And a lot of times in some of our departments, that could mean an immigrant population, a population that speaks a certain language. And I think it's also important to invest in developing your employment brand for that language or that population, and getting the right team to do it. If you're hiring people that are speaking a certain language, and you're not providing them with some materials that they can read and understand, that's probably not sending the greatest message. And if the place down the street is doing it, it makes their decision really easy. The other thing for the workers that you're attracting, that are marketing, operations, front desk, the more white collar type positions. This is where having a presence on LinkedIn is super important. And one of the things that I've seen in the last year with us helping a lot of our clients with their LinkedIn strategy is that, you type in anybody's name. So if your HR department is doing a search for, if they have a candidate, you type anybody's name into Google. Usually, if they've got a LinkedIn profile, it's going to come up in the first 5 results there. And so it's really important to remember that when somebody clicks on a person's profile that works for your organization, you want to make their presence consistent across all of your employees there. And I think employment branding, in my mind, starting on LinkedIn and using that as sort of a sandbox to make sure that you have a consistent brand across your leadership team that's there on LinkedIn is very important.
I agree. And one of the simple things, on that point, Steve, is when you look at somebody's LinkedIn profile, there's a background, there's the picture on the left-hand side, little round circle of the picture of you or the person, whoever you're looking at, having the same consistent branding behind them is really a very important factor that a lot of people sometimes want to put their own personality or something, maybe a little bit more touchy-feely about, what they like to do on weekends. Leave that for Facebook. LinkedIn is a professional organization. It's helping you brand yourself and your organization. And again, this is just my opinion, is having consistency in that, where it flows from one person to the next person, whether you're the CEO of the company or whether you're the director of maintenance, all having that same branding, consistent branding is key.
So chances are the leadership in your organization is going to have a presence on LinkedIn, your CEO, your upper management, your what have you. And you think about it, adult children, what are the chances that I'm going to do some research and see about and learn about the leadership team at Shady Acres, and they get on LinkedIn and they either see that the leadership team isn't on there. Well, wow, that's not very transparent. Or they've got all this inconsistency, or you've got a director who still has the job that he had before on LinkedIn. You can see how just that one element of social media, if you're not in alignment, no matter what you got on your website, doesn't really make a difference, because the consumer might have not gone to your website. Maybe they're just searching there on that platform, which is a great recruiting platform and a great place to make connections for referrals and marketing, which again is why I'm so charged up about this topic. Is I know we call it employment branding, but I want to come up with a new term for it. And I'll probably sleep on it over the next week, but something that's sort of like a hybrid in terms of an employment consumer brand and ways you can keep track of both of those.
Good point.
But this has been great, Steffani, and it doesn't surprise me that we've already gone over an hour.
And you know what, just for you folks out there, if anybody's interested in learning more about the different elements, in subcategories, let Steve know, and we can do another, employment branding 2.0, 3.0. I mean, there's so much information out there that I could share. I had to fit it into a short, relatively short time span. So I only covered the basics. So there is ways that we can dive much deeper.
Awesome. This is great. Thanks, Steffani, and thanks to everybody who participated today. And we'll have this recording up later today. You can grab it on our website, and I'll make sure to share the contact with you, Steffani, so you could follow up with folks.
Excellent. Wonderful. Well, thanks for having me, and great seeing you again.
Talk to you soon. Okay, bye.